We are on to map 8 already. How time flies. Can't believe it. We've already got through all the star maps. Looking today at Kessex Hills. Footage submitted by TechZoom. Thanks very much for that. Today we're going to be looking at the open world, how to clear this map nice and efficiently, and talking about memories of how this map has changed over the years, what it was like in Guild Wars 1 for this region of the world, and just fun trivia and stuff that we think we can find. So opening near Fort Salma right now, and we're well in the thick of it, with the destroyed Tower of Nightmares in front of us. So something special about Kessex Hills is, of all the explorable maps in the game, this one has probably had the most versions and big differences. The earliest versions of Kessex Hills had a very different appearance to the village in the southeasterly corner, Garenhof. They changed it a little bit later and updated how the Wizard's Tower and stuff looked. We'll deal with that when we get over there. But then there were more updates as we went along. Where we're currently standing used to be lush and green, verdant. In fact, this exact area that we are really appeared in the very first trailer for Guild Wars 2. A long sweeping shot as we ran through these hillsides that seemed to be unending and gave a sense of a really big open world. Really, it was just a little bit here in Kessex. Then the trailer even went to show like a little bit of a waterfall with a weird crane creature that's sort of not really a full-fledged creature, more of just an environmental prop, but is animated to look like it's moving and alive. That's still there to this day, but most of it's now all been destroyed. A good chunk of what you see in the original release trailer, well, not the release trailer, just the very first trailer they ever showed, is gone because it's now the site of the destroyed Tower of Nightmares. So during Living World Season 1, there were multiple patches here, starting with various trees just disappearing and lumber and piles of logs appearing along the shores, and no one knew why. I actually especially remember those updates coming in because many happened and didn't cause any discussions. Like, I didn't do any videos talking about it. It was only like quite a bit later that someone, I think, made a forum post saying, hey, have you guys noticed this stuff? Reddit kind of picked it up a bit later, and eventually it turned out the devs were doing this big, so that water there, that's where that crane is on the left. It turned out the devs were doing this big story about how there was a big invisible force field and a great tower was being built. Then there were the patches with the tower being up. Then the patches with the tower actually having been destroyed and thrown down. And, you know, the Nightmare Alliance toxic little extra events got added all over the place. So just massive amounts of change here. Then, during Season 2, that was all just Season 1. During Season 2, this is Fort Salma. This was attacked by one of the Elder Dragons and destroyed. And all the plant life here kind of came up and warped the area, removed some of the old stuff that was here. So even all of this ended up being changed, and just patch after patch after patch completely augmented this place. And I kind of like it for that reason, to be honest, because there's so much history. You can see so many different patches. Like right now we're playing vanilla content, but we're kind of sandwiched all around us with content that came later. And it's a really, really fun thing to get to grips with. I actually usually struggle on this particular heart just because there's never enough spike traps for me. I appreciate that you can go closer to the Centaur base over there, but I always kind of run out. I think there's some stuff you can do with watering buckets here. Here you can see where you actually specifically pour out the fires, and that will speed you up a bit. But as you can see, we don't get that much progress here. This map's about average length compared with all the others. You can probably tell from the video timestamp. It's about on par with the length of most of the other maps that we've been doing so far in terms of actually completing it. But there are just certain moments like this that really feel like big slowdowns. I wonder if these weren't. They were like slightly more interesting hearts, or they were, you know, tuned to be really easy like other ones are. Maybe this map would be one of the quicker ones. So we get this little base, Thunder Ridge. This can actually flip in either direction, the Seraph or the Centaurs. I very rarely see the actual event going on though, extremely rarely. And right there is the portal over to Brisbane. So just a couple of episodes ago, you saw me on the other side of that in the location where I quit playing my Mesmo altogether. But on this side, it's just kind of toxic and nasty looking. I remember the Season 1 updates so clearly. During Season 1, there was a whole camp right here in which you could communicate with some of the members of the Dermot Priory that were investigating, and what they were hinting at with the Mesmer Alliance and stuff, and you would cash in a lot of your unique materials from that release over there. Then all the characters ended up moving on. You can also notice in the background in this video some Halloween doors. So this is a little bit of behind the scenes, I guess. It's been a long time in the making, this open world series. They're just very, very slowly gathering map footage. And of course, you're looking at Halloween doors there and thinking, yeah, it was over half a year ago now that this was gathered, but all good things come to those who wait, and here we are. The actual process of map completion has not changed since this footage was gathered. And I'll note on top of that as well that, to be honest, I don't think that map completion will much change going forwards either. The devs have had many opportunities to update or tweak or refine. And since the big update with the Chinese client that I've been talking so much about that really affected the earliest maps, they've never really gone back to these kinds of patches. I think they had quite bad feedback from it. Didn't really see much change, and I'm sure they don't consider the effort would be worthwhile anymore. It's a much safer investment for them to keep forging ahead on the story and not split the studio, or at least the part of the studio working on Guild Wars 2, to split that to focus back on old stuff. So they're just kind of marching forwards here, and it is what it is. But that's good, because that also means that these videos will kind of remain timeless. So this camp, I have fond memories from launch, struggling here. Like, truly, desperately struggling. But I also have a very clear memory of this event, this exact event that's up right now with these 3 lieutenants to fight. I remember struggling to fight my way through, and I really wanted to beat the event. And all of a sudden, the heart was finished, and I hadn't beaten the event. And I had kind of a weird, ugly moment that I hoped would never happen. But I remember several people on the Guild Wars 2 Guru forums before Guild Wars 2 came out said might happen. And I'd resisted. I'd been a fanboy, and I said, no, this won't happen. But I had kind of an ugly moment where I was like, well, I don't want to do the event now. I can't, you know, the main thing, the permanent thing, the thing my account will remember is the heart completion. And so suddenly I was torn, and I was like, well, why do the event? And that is not how you were meant to feel playing Guild Wars 2. You were meant to feel like the events were important because you were somehow attached to the world and the way that the events impacted the world. But the truth was, we kind of just become more attached to the hearts and stuff because that's what gets us our legendary progress, or that's because that's going to be the permanent progress. Events will just loop over and over and over again, and nothing will ever like really mark that you were here. The devs opted not to add achievements that tally up event completion. And maybe that was a good move because it avoided a lot of frustration for players that inevitably would have come where players are trying to beat events that you had to fail previous events and stuff like that. But also, in a way, I think it meant that they lost a lot of value. And I really remember standing there and having that moment. I thought I pushed through for what it's worth. I stayed and I did the whole event. But I'd recognized in myself that something was amiss with like the experience. Very cool little technique here. I'm amazed that that worked. Beautiful. So a portal on the outside, followed by a mass invis to not get attacked, followed by a channel and distortion to be invulnerable so that when we get attacked during the channel, it actually goes through, and then finally portaling to the exit. That was really, really brilliant. And that cave there with that little hero challenge, that was actually a bit of a pain as well. In fact, in several of the low-level challenges I've done, that's been a real pain. Really, really densely clustered area with pretty fast respawn rates, and you're probably, when you get there, kind of sick of centaurs, because most of the time you would have just done those other centaur camps before getting there, and you're just sort of done with it. Climbing on top of the hill doesn't really reward you anyway. So down here on the bottom left, this swamp is a pretty special place as far as Guild Wars 2 story is concerned. It gives you some really good background for the Sylvari. Lots of things actually happen here, whether you play a human or a Sylvari. The exact timing of them, I'm not quite sure how they match up. But once again, just like before, we are in the Twin Serpent Lakes. Just like when we were in the Brisbane episode, and we were sort of intersecting there. So does that make this one of the Twin Serpent Lakes? I mean, it's less of a lake and more of a swampy kind of area now, but it's true. And in fact, slightly to the north as well was a location called the Tears of the Fallen. In fact, I'll plop the map on screen for you guys now. You can get a sense of how this map corresponds to Guild Wars 1 locations. Much like Queensdale before it, it's actually got a lot of travel and map stuff, but it's a little bit, you know, there's holes around and it's a little bit intermittent. I want to really draw your attention very carefully to the Kessex Peak and that narrow corridor that then opens up into a big map at Kessex Peak. Now, that is done really well in Guild Wars 2, and I'll talk about that when we get there in a second. Looking along, we beat the heart in the swamp, and we're just moving slightly off towards the east from where you last saw before we put the map up. Nice little vista here involving climbing this tree. I don't remember it ever being this fiddly on that route, but there you have it. And a cool moment there as well where there's a waterway down into the Caledon Forest to the south. Now, unfortunately, I can't swing the camera here to show you, but sometimes Arena had these awkward moments where in theory, I should be able to just swim along that water and arrive in the next map. But they can't do that because you can only actually travel from map to map at the very specific portals because of the way that the game is built. So they have to like put rocks there and like a weird kind of awkward invisible wall and barrier. They do that a couple of times in Kryta. One of the best ones actually features NPCs on a boat that sail from left to right. They go through it. It's a really rare, cool Easter egg. We'll talk about that when we get to the Harathi hinterlands. And in a later update, they made a real portal, which was really cool. But here, it's kind of unnecessary because the actual portal to Caledon is slightly off to the side. Another very dangerous area. We're actually in a level 24 event right now. You can always tell the level of the heart that you're at by looking on the top right. And so this map is meant to be level 15 to 25. So this is kind of like the last stuff you would do on this map. Very dangerous bandits here. If you come here too early, and that's very easy, by the way. A naive Sylvari coming up from the south, or a naive human coming from Claypool at the north. This isn't far away from those places, and you kind of get battered if you come here too quick. Especially because right here can be a champion event, which is very nasty. The architecture here I remember being captivated by the first time I ever played it, but when you play enough Guild Wars 2, you recognize that those same assets get used everywhere. They're in World vs. World and the Obsidian Jumping Puzzle. They're in the jumping puzzle on this map called the Shattered Observatory. They really don't mean much. I like this area though, the Ariko Trade Camp. You can actually interact with some Tengu there. We are getting a little bit closer to the Tengu sort of environments and territories. And they tell you a little bit more about themselves. I think some of the first Tengu I ever saw playing the game was when I was in this map on my Mesmer, and I found those Tengu. I remember sitting there and just like marveling at their animations. Because ArenaNet put a lot of work into the Tengu. They have all these idols, and again, they have a very distinct kind of armors and clothing and stances, and they talk in a very specific way. And they're not really used much. That makes them so special to me. It's the same as the Lagos. You know, as I record these videos, we're talking about an underwater expansion coming up, and I still don't see people talk about the Lagos enough because, you know, they are a big part of the underwater story, and it's interesting to think how they might fit in. Anyway, really cool heart here, and I'm amazed to see how we're doing this. I have never done this heart in this way, ever, but it looks very, very efficient. Look, we've already got this progress. This heart, you're meant to be in the cave nearby. And what you're supposed to do is transform into a pig by speaking to the Hylek. Here we go. And you say, he says, I'll transform you. And you say, wait, pig magic? And as a pig, you unlock special new interactions to deal with these burrows, which can give you truffles. But they also spawn enemies. You have to use the new pig skills. I really want to draw you guys' attention to the skill bar there. Look at that. Look at the art on the skill bar. It is so well made. They look like a full set of proper class skills, because the colors are coordinated so well, and it's really, really good. And there's a lot you can do. You can kind of stealth past Ettins and stuff. You can run in there really deep. It's a great heart, but it takes a long time. I guess through this technique, it's a lot easier. This point of interest was the one I struggled on most when I first ever played this map. Because the only way to get here into the Togato grounds is through this underwater tunnel. And I don't know, the fact that this tunnel's entrance is right next to the previous heart kind of made me feel like I hadn't missed anything here because I'd got the heart, so there was nothing here. So it took me a really long time to realize. And if you look at the minimap right now, I'm really far away from the POI right now. So to know that you have to go all the way over here to swim down and through the tunnel and then get into a hollow rock was just bizarre to me. But I do like the hollow rock. I like swimming through there, and you can see like actual friendlies, you know, sort of greeting you as they guard their passage. It's all really well done. I just remember that was such a struggle. So we're in the lake, which is of course very different as it originally was. Get the opportunity to destroy debris and kind of help the people of the Quaggan village nearby. Are these the first Quaggan we're interacting with in this entire series so far? What other Quaggan have we interacted with? Well, there'll be plenty of that coming up. The event in the area as well, this group event, the Crate Witch. I remember when I first played the game, I didn't really know what it meant by group event, or I just kind of glossed over it and didn't really think about it. And I remember trying to fight the group witch with just like maybe 1 or 2 other people, the Crate Witch, sorry, and getting destroyed because it's a really dangerous event. And to this day, I don't like swimming into that cave. I don't know my way around there very well, and I'm scared of that boss because it's a devastating boss. Has the added side of being an underwater encounter, which, you know, people generally aren't familiar with. I have to say, guys, I am so frustrated with the Guild Wars 2 community at the moment, and the way that people discuss underwater with this game. So much just complete nonsense is getting talked about the state of Guild Wars 2's underwater combat and why people supposedly do or supposedly don't like it. And people justify and say, oh, it's because the combat was horrendously broken at launch and nothing worked and so on and so on. And so, listen, it is true that at launch there had been bugs with the underwater combat, but they were kind of subtle things for most classes that really you wouldn't have... A lot of people didn't know. Like, I remember maybe a year after launch that I realized one of my... And remember, Elementalist is a class that gets 4 attunements, so a lot of underwater weapon skills. I realized that one of the 20 had infinite range, so I could target something really far away and press the button and I could hit it at infinite range, which was pretty cool, but of course, that also they would just immediately break combat with me and regenerate super fast, so... It didn't matter, or it didn't really affect the game. A lot of the weird stuff about underwater was that kind of thing, or weird interactions where you'd cast things underwater out of the water. And yeah, in some very rare situations, there were more prominent things. And in terms of, like, PvP balance, a lot of it was crazy, you know, very, very poorly implemented. Like, infinite evade techniques and stuff like that. Yes, for PvP. But as far as the game generally is concerned... I'm not scared to say this, and I try to be as fair as possible about Guild Wars 2 in all respects. You know, if I think it's done something bad, I will try to say that it's done something bad. I would not say that it did a bad job with underwater stuff at launch. I actually think that, especially compared to its peers, this game has extremely good underwater experience. You know, they may have copped out or slacked on certain details, and some of the balance could have been slightly better and so on, or even a lot better. But they did go to the level of giving you all new skills across your weapon skills that actually feel like they fit underwater, you know. You're not just casting flames and walking around on the seafloor like happens in a lot of MMOs. You know, you're actually properly able to swim up and down, and ground targeting feels natural down there, and you're boiling the water instead of whatever, the themes change and so on. One of the real biggest issues with Guild Wars 2's Underwater is just that it never hooked that meaningfully into buildcraft. The animations were horrendous, so it was pretty much impossible to see what was going on. And there was never any, like, engaging content down there that, you know, felt super satisfying. And that's not necessarily just Underwater's fault. That's, newsflash, all of Guild Wars 2's open world. None of it's really that satisfying or well-balanced. You know, there's not that much great challenge there at all. So, yeah, I think it was really that. The animations, the buildcraft, and the fact that there's just not any compelling content made for it. But there is a lot of content, and what they did, you know, particularly for the skills and stuff, I think is applaudable. Anyway, we're out of the water now. We're just running along. Don't worry, I haven't really missed out on anything prominent here. Nice long roads. I like using the roller beetle here. I have a memory of a guy years ago doing a speed run of this map, I'm not joking, where he was on a thief, and he was trying to chain as many teleports as possible just to run across the north of this map. Maybe it was like a speed run from the left of the world to the right of the world, and it was just cutting through here that I remember. But I remember it be looking so clean and nice because these areas were so open. This heart I tend to struggle with, and that vista I used to struggle with as well, the one that we're heading to in a second, where you actually have to kind of platform and climb around a little bit. But actually getting credit for this heart always took me a while. There's actually a whole centaur base up on that bluff up there that I very rarely spend any time at. Very rarely. Even though this heart takes a while, I like to stay out here, clear the flags away, kill centaurs. I'm not sure how often it actually flips. It looks like the Seraph control it right now. And in fact, this is a whole meta event. You know, this is maybe one of my most forgettable meta events. The battle for Northeast Kessex Hills. Oh, how exciting. It's not a very big battlefield. It doesn't really expand too far, right? But we are very near to what will become some very interesting areas. Surprise, surprise. Once all this centaur content's done, and we nearly are out of the thick of it, don't worry guys. And that's in the northeast of the map, where there's another meta event to deal with a necromancer named Drethor, who's conducting all these abductions and horrendous experiments on people. And he even summons a variety of undead creatures that feel really special and unique here. Lots of events to do with him. Hopefully we'll spy one when we get over there. Looks like pretty good timing for us to come here for the heart, because the defense does allow us to get some free tags. Doesn't look like there's much else to do. Also, it doesn't look like there's any play. Oh, there is a player here using choking gas. So it looks like there was one human player that defended the first 9 waves, and now here we are for the last couple. There you go. And we don't even have to stay for the whole thing, but there it is. get a bit of experience, gold, karma. I really think so much more of Guild Wars 2 would have felt rewarding in terms of sticking about for the events and stuff if karma had been balanced a little bit differently and karma sinks were a bit more in people's faces. Like, for example, this roadblock here, we really wouldn't have any need to do this as a map completer. Except for the fact that we'll hopefully get some heart credit as we go. But I like these little barricade events. This is one of those events that you do see in a lot of maps, but I'm 100% happy with. Because it just, you know, it's a barricade. It makes sense. It doesn't matter whether we're in the Wayfarer foothills and it's a barricade that's impeding my progress while I'm at a convention demo, or whether it's here, it's on a road, it's a barricade, it makes sense. And they especially work really well when you're doing roller beetle races. There's no particular roller beetle race that is located right here on this hill, but hey. I wonder whether the devs were tempted with that. There is a roller beetle race on this map, but it's the tutorial roller beetle race, which gives you way less benefit. And I think a lot of players probably skip over and don't really do very much. It's an extremely short course. It basically teaches you like one turn. I'm not joking. But it's the tutorial and, you know, it has its meaning. So this is kind of sad. This is the way we're completing the Blackhaven heart. And we're nowhere near Blackhaven. We're actually extremely far away from the heart vendor right now. I'm amazed we're still in range of the heart. We've now toggled out. We're not in range anymore. But we are really far away. So I guess we'll return there later. There is a skill challenge and things to get anyway. So where we are now, the road on our right, we're up a cliff. But the road on our right cuts between two cliffs in kind of a long winding band. You see down there? That haven down there is amazing as well, by the way. Loads of stories and ambient dialogue about fishing and the crate and stuff. This road here, now this is amazing. Remember when I threw up the Guild Wars 1 map and it had that long winding road that existed here in Guild Wars 1 that took you to Kessex Peak? This is that same road. And it's amazing how perfectly it lines up in Guild Wars 2. I'm amazed that the geography works so well. It feels very different exploring between the two games. In the first, it feels like much more of a slog. There's a lot more enemies. It all feels a bit bigger. In this game, it feels a little bit more natural, and you know it's a road, so you're not being impeded every 2 steps of the way. But I love that those two things lined up there. I really do. And when we go down that road, I'll have a ton to talk about in terms of my old dailies and stuff too. First, a quick detour out to this little town and helping engineer Gilly, which basically seems to equate to helping out on these fields as well. The reason it's an engineer is the main place to deal with this heart should be in the quarry at the back of the house. Where again, I like these little outposts. They're some of my favourite places in the whole game, just because you can actually go into the buildings and explore a bit. You see there's a posted message on that wall. That's another update to Kessex that happened years later, once a big war was taking place here. And I don't really count that the same as like the Nightmare Tower and all those other things, because it's not really a geometry change. It's not that they actually moved any of the models or assets around. They just kind of plastered these messages, which I think is a different kind of thing. So and the devs can do a little bit more comfortably without having to really mess with the whole map in the manifest or whatever. I don't know. I'm wading out of my depth in how well I could talk about this stuff here. But yeah, it's a cool area. Jumping down, he could actually kill these bats, I think, for a bit of progress. Or certainly those centaurs. Centaurs actually attacking the town all over, so that was a nice portal. Really got to move us very far. It seems that in the footage, TechZoon is struggling a little bit with Greatsword 5. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. Greatsword 5 is a point-blank AoE that's just a pushback, and I think sometimes he's misjudging the range. It does have a very big animation, so I'm not surprised. Moving to the right, this is the location of some personal story stuff. Like a big assault from the Risen will take place here if you select the right choices. As for the open world, it's mostly just a scummed out, gross, ill dock area where people need your help to clear away their toxins and kill the crate and things that are nearby. It also says on the top right that we can check out the fisherman's shrimp traps. I'm not sure I ever really do that. I mostly just stick about here. I think this place might be also able to get attacked sometimes. Like, look at this. Look at this cool little room. Now, those boats that are docked there, the devs do actually have the capability to move those around. That's what we'll see moving around when we get to Arathi later. But as for this map, they never do. They're always stationary. And that's always curious to me, because, look, if the asset has been animated, and I know that they can hook scripts up to it, so it'll be dynamically do things, it's always weird for me to see them not taking advantage of that elsewhere in the game. Maybe Maybe it was too tricky and annoying to do the thing in Harathi. But how cool would this lake be if you actually saw the fishermen sailing around and doing things, you know? That's a big thing with Tyrian and dynamic events. You would think that there'd be an event where these people are suffering and none of the boats are out in the water. You help with the event, you defend them, and then the boats go out and start moving around and sort of do their thing again. It's those little ideas, those visual kind of, you know, vignettes that I have in my mind that I think a Guild Wars 3 could be very robust and good with. Again, I don't know whether a game like a Guild Wars 3 is warranted or needed or any of that, but if they were doing it and they were trying to double down on the whole dynamic event thing, they were trying to refine the wheel instead of reinvent it this time, I think I'd like to see those kinds of advancements made to dynamic events, because I think with more work and, you know, a whole new baseline to work with, the devs could really, really make them shine. They got like most of the way there, but now they've committed to this product for the next decade. And so who knows what other refinements could happen. We haven't certainly seen any great ones elsewhere in the MMO space, have we? That's a great lake as well, by the way, for collecting sharks, juvenile sharks if you're a ranger. And I'll note as well, that whole lake does not exist in Guild Wars 1. That is all land, all fields, filled with like Varatan cultists, a mysterious band of people on hills and cliffs. There's absolutely no water whatsoever. And in this game, it's flooded. I don't know why. Let's just say it's got something to do with the Elder Dragons. Or, you know, maybe a dam or something, some of the flooding. It certainly wasn't the Tower of Nightmares, but hey. So this place is my favorite area of Kessex. I love this area. Why? Aesthetically, it's beautiful. From one of these peaks, right where we're standing, you can see a big destroyer spout, a Lion Guard haven, a human, like, little town, the place we were at a second ago, a lake with, you know, fishermen and docks off on the side, the Tengu wall, and if you angle your character perfectly correct, you can even see the devastation of the destroyers sometimes based on certain events. If you angle your camera in the right way, you can see one of the toxic crate alliance things going on, and you can already see the wizard's tower from here. We'll talk more about the wizard's tower as we go along in a moment, but you can actually see it from right about here. I love that. And hell, even right now it's Halloween, so we've got a Halloween door here. Just such a blend of so many different parts of the game. The roller beetle tutorial is just on that hill over there as well. That's one reason I like it, but the other reason I love this area is because I've spent so many hours here. Why have I done that? Well, way back when, it used to be that one of the dailies you would be asked to do, and back when I used to still get achievement points for dailies and the money was worth it and stuff, I used to really want to do the dailies. One of the tasks that would always come up is beat 5 events, 5 dynamic events. Now, I'm sure there's loads of different places you can do that all over Guild Wars 2. This is where I settled on, though. On nobody else's advice, just my own instincts, I came here. So there's loads of events you can do. There's the Etten roadblock in the little cave down there on the left. There's the Etten event with these pillars that you can see in this area of the cave, where you drag some explosives and blow them up. Following the pillar event, there's an Etten boss event where you kill 1 veteran, and that's an event all on its own. Then towards the destroyer area, there's the destroyer fissure that can sometimes come up. There's a little girl that you can do an escort with. There's another Etten cave nearby where there are like these bone piles that if you interact with all the bone piles, it triggers like a secret event, and you can deal with that. So there's so many events that can potentially be happening right here, and they're all on really fast respawn times. So I would just come here, and within maybe like 10 to 15 minutes, I'd have all 5 of my events done. And this especially is where I'd end. I'd usually end in that Etten cave back there. As for the hearts, they're all pretty regular to deal with. This destroyer one's particularly fun. The guy who's given it to you is a member of the Tengu. And there is actually an entrance to the Dominion of Winds right near here. An entrance which had a weird update, by the way, maybe 2 years ago, where there was a staircase and a ramp leading up to it, and then the ramp asset got like deleted, which kind of sent the internet into a frenzy, wondering if the devs had a Tengu update coming for us or something, and then all went quiet again. So I don't know whether they were messing with something. It might have been to do with a completely different patch or an accident or something, I'm not sure. But yeah, the wall looks so good, doesn't it, guys? Like, sort of mossy. Yeah, those stairs there disappeared for, like, a patch. And it was very, very odd. I think there was a little bit of a world hole there as well. There's actually a way to bug out of the map here, too. Killing all the destroyers along here isn't necessary. Another thing you can do is go deep into the cave. There's a whole hidden destroyer boss in the cave down there too, defending a rich iron vein maybe, or a rich silver vein or something. Pretty challenging to deal with, but I would sometimes go down there just to test my DPS or to test my build's robustness. I like to go there and see if I could survive against him or how much damage I could do. Nowadays he's a little bit underpowered for the state of the game, so I don't really come here. But yeah, this cave, this is a lot like the Norn cave I was talking about in Wayfarer Foothills. You can fall in here from a sinkhole accidentally. And unlike with the Norn one, you're actually in quite a deep little chasm at that point. Here you go. This is, you don't need to come here for map completion. I'm not sure. Oh, well, you do. The Maffic Core. There's a POI in there. Was that always true? Well, there you go. In that room, there's a champion. But yeah, these tunnels are actually kind of tricky to get out if you're low level. And if you end up falling down the hole and you end up in here, there's a little girl that occasionally falls down too, and you can escort her out. You're in the same position as one another. It's just a really nice little moment. This one's actually better realized than the Wayfarer Foothills hole, but that was not the one that I remember there being a big Reddit thread about and so much enthusiasm and excitement. So this river here, if you follow this river up the other way, you do end up at a jumping puzzle. I don't think there's any need to do it for map completion, but if you follow it down, there are these caves. This area particularly is very beautiful. This vista, well worth a watch. One of the best vanilla vistas in the game. These waterfalls just look so phenomenal. And the cave behind us has all these weird interactions with cave-ins and so on. If you're still struggling for dynamic events in this area, if it's years ago and the dailies are still asking you to do it, you could even come all the way over here and do the Gort events or whatever's currently cycled here. So here's a giant. Giants are very rare. But this guy's a friendly giant, so you can't even kill him for achievement credit. But the back of the cave has that collapsed wall. If you help Gort reclaim his home, because sometimes he gets pushed out, if you help him reclaim his home, he'll clear that rubble away for you and give you a special chest back there. So that's pretty nice. Okay, so really only a couple things left to do on the map now. Let's look at the very southeast and Garenhof. Here, this is the hidden event on the left here. There's some strawberries you can gather near here, and by running all the way around here, we get another beautiful vista. This is the Wizard's Fife. What more can I say about this that I haven't said in a billion videos? This is the ultimate enigma for the game at this point. A gorgeous area, a brilliant mystery, really, really decent world building, so much atmosphere here. It's a mysterious town that did not exist in Guild Wars 1, but talks about a seemingly benevolent wizard that takes care of them, that lives in that tower. But no one's been able to go up to the tower for years. No one knows really what his deal is. He might be connected with a necromancer from the first game. They sent these elementals to take care of everyone, but they've kind of taken over the town in a way. They have no real police force of their own. These people are very vulnerable. There's something super sinister and vampiric going on, and it's gorgeous here. So you see that gate right there, guys? That gate is actually, like, they could script that gate to open. And if you look at the maps, you will see that that would lead you to another region of Kryta that was not implemented anymore. A couple of videos ago, I talked about a data mined map that was going to exist where Claw Island is. That is where that map would have been. At one point in the development of this game, they were going to have a map through that gate. But it never happened, and to this day, you can't go there. And to this day, you can't explore the Wizard's Tower. Another thing about the Wizard's Tower that you should probably take note of is that is not actually where it was in Guild Wars 1. In Guild Wars 1, the Wizard's Tower was visible, but it was much closer to Caledon Forest. You know the crate deeps and the very top right corner of Caledon Forest, where I talked to you guys in the video about how I'd get my key every day? That deeps? That is pretty much where the Wizard's Tower was in the original game, just slightly to the east of that crate deep, slightly off the map, behind the wall. And now it's been moved. It's been moved completely out of Tengu territory and all the way around here, on the other side of the Tengu territory, to Garenhof. And the devs did talk about that, but why and everything that's going on, we still don't know. Maybe a story for after the dragon stories are over. Who knows, right? Much like Malik. So here we got the Drethor stuff. It looks like the Drethor event is going on. So you notice this isn't a meta. Did I call it a meta earlier? I honestly thought it was a meta. It's not even a meta. But there's a lot of events that can chain together here, leading to a very cool boss. Really, really awesome story. There's a very cool hero challenge we're about to go to in a second as well that has a lot of story and dialogue to do with the underworld. Because over at the Temple of the Ages, the flooded Temple of the Ages, It has that weird stuff about that's where time began. But the story here in Guild Wars 2, 250 years later, is that something messy is happening in the underworld and the creatures are kind of escaping. And here's a portal that they're escaping from. And yeah, this exact hero challenge here. It's well worth stopping to read about that. Here you'll see we're actually fighting Akke, which people who played the Guild Wars 1 endgame stuff will be more than familiar with as super deadly creatures. And here they are in Guild Wars 2 in what is essentially a beginner map. And we're trying to fight them away here, which is kind of funny. Plenty of story takes place here too. Lots of ambient dialogue, really getting to grips with the Lion Guard and everything that they have to say here. Eating the rotten meat from the Drethor cave. And I guess all that really remains is a couple of points of interest, plus the vista at the top of this tower. Well, hold on. Oh my god. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this tower is really fun to climb. I remember climbing around the outside. I didn't think there was an actual just regular stairway up there. Very reminiscent of the World vs. World towers, for anyone who ends up getting a bit of an eye for that. And so with that complete, what is the final POI? I guess oh yeah, we're going to go north to the Bandit Forest. Sort of like a bit of a Robin Hood. What's the forest in Robin Hood? Oh my god, why am I blanking on that at the moment? Anyway, we're going to go up there, deal with that last heart. Here as well, by the way, Uzulan's hideout. That's a pretty unique thing. Quite often in Guild Wars 2, personal story areas are fully explorable in the open world. Most of the time, ArenaNet never made bespoke special places for the personal story to take place in. They tried to be efficient and doubled up, and I have a lot of respect for that. I think that's fine. That does obviously come with a bit of a quality drop, though, a lot of the time, and that's why when finally really story-heavy fractals and dungeons and raids started coming out, they felt so satisfying, because that was unique areas being made to tell a unique story, which was really good, and something the personal story had been missing out on, and even some of the expansion stories miss out on. However, here, that Uzulan's hideout, that is a rare example of the opposite. That hideout you cannot visit in the open world. There's nothing for you to do there, no enemies, no hearts, no dynamic events. The door is locked and will always be locked unless you do the one personal story step that takes you in there. And I love that. I love a bit of mystery, and if you've never done I think it's the circus story, is it? That's the only way you do it. Or actually, I think it's the mid-tier of personal story choice you have to pick. But there you have it. That is Kessex Hills. The Explorer Society talks to us a lot on this one. And that's a nice quick clear of a very, very layered map filled with history. Brilliant. And right in the Kryta region. So thanks very much for watching, guys. Let me know your memories. And I'll see you for the next one very shortly.